Okay, so if you remember last episode, we got our lower links all figured out, all leveled out, all tacked in. Now we're going to work on our upper links. I got some steel so I can make a cross member. I'll show you what's going on and we'll start getting into it. So let's go. Alrighty, so good news. We got our package from RideTech, and I do believe it should be our shocks. Oh, look at that. They even sent us some nice little decals. That's sweet. I got my instruction sheet, and let's see what else we got in here. Bushings. Let's see what else. These are some nice aluminum mounts that are going on the bottom of our brackets. And this should be a set of shock waves. Oh yeah, baby. That's what I'm talking about. So now we can set up our shocks in the rear of the truck. So let's get at it. Okay, so the first thing I did was I moved my emergency brake cables out of the way. I got this brake line here. I wanted to get that out of the way. I cleaned up the area on both sides of the frame. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a plate on either side with my cross member in here. I'm going to take what I got here, which is a couple of flat pieces of steel, and this is going to go something to this effect right here. Same on the other side. So I'm going to get these ground up. I'm going to grind all this mill scale off of these and the end of this, and I'm going to get this prepped to make a cross member. Once I do that, I can fit it in there, and then we can start messing around with these bars right here. So what I did was I made this cross member here. I just have it tacked up so that I can move this anywhere I want, but conveniently it sits right down on these welds over here so I can move it anywhere I want and it's not going to fall out. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my bars. First I'm going to grind this rear end, the top of this, so all my paint is gone in those areas where I might want to be tack welding. Then I'm going to get my bars up here. So I've got my cross member jigged up in here. And what I decided was, based upon the room I have, I'm going to triangulate towards the center like I have in my other projects in the past, rather than from the outside, because I don't think I have enough angle to go from this rear end, this pumpkin, over to here and get a good angle. Right here, I think I got a nice angle that's going to hold both sides. I've cut my brackets, so I got a nice angle here, and I got this, these just clamped on there. I just got these sitting here, and if I lay my protractor on top of these, they are almost at the same level as these two here. In other words, they're on the same type of an angle. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to take my bolts off, and I'm going to take these brackets here and I'm going to tack them on there, and then put this cross member back in here, and then snug up these bolts on these and see if I can work on getting the back to be tacked in, and we'll be that much closer to getting this in. So this is what I've got set up now. I've got my bars triangulated to the center. I got them tacked. This cross member is just sitting in here. I got my tabs sitting up on top of my rear end where I think that they should go. So the next thing I want to do is I want to check the angle on these bars so that each side is the same angle and that they match these side bars. So that's what I'm going to work on. So what I did was I got my bar, I took and ground these so that they fit the axle better, and I'll show you how I did that in a minute. And now I've got them both ground and fitted to the axle, and my protractor, my angle gauge, or what you want to call it, is about 2 degrees down, which is exactly what I have on my lower bar. So I got this side all set. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to throw a couple of tacks on this to hold it, and then I'm going to go over to the other side and do the same thing. Okay, so I got my brackets tack welded. I tack welded them right on the tips like this, and the same thing here on this side, just here and here. That way there, if I want to tweak them, I can. Now I'm over here on this side and I'm trying to get this particular set of brackets done, and I'm going to show you how I managed to contour the bracket to the rear end. Okay, so the first thing I did was I measured this rear end housing, and it's 3 inches in diameter. So then what I did was I found this oil filter socket, and it is 3 inches in diameter. So now what I can do is I can set that right on here, and then I can trace it with a marker, and that gives me the contour of my rear end, you know, pretty closely. The other thing that affects it is that bracket being on an angle, so you end up trimming these tabs on the end, but that's just a trial and error thing. So here's my piece. I set my 3-inch diameter socket on there and traced it. Now I have a pattern. I'm going to take my die grinder and I'm going to cut a bunch of slots in this and then grind this, and then I'll have a rough curvature of what I got going on that I can fit to the rear end. So I got this bar over here. I got these brackets kind of ground and fitted to the rear end. Same thing over here. And I got it fitting pretty good, and I've got my protractor at a 2-degree down angle, the same as the other side and the same as these bars. So I'm going to go ahead and tack these brackets, and we should actually have a functioning four-link. Okay, so I took my cross member out and I put some permanent welds on my brackets, and what I think I'm going to do with this cross member is because it's got to be painted and I can't paint the top because the bed is on the truck, I'm going to make this cross member a bolt-in piece. So I'm going to drill a couple of holes over here and a couple of holes over here, and then get it in position on the truck, clamp it, and drill a couple of holes in the frame and bolt this cross member in. That way there, if we ever have to take it out, we can, and in the meantime, it's going to be easy for me to prep up and paint. So that's going to be what's going on there. And next thing I'll be moving on to, I can't do anything with this because it's red hot. Next thing I want to move on to up in here is putting some brackets on these brackets for my shocks, and seeing, you know, where my cross members got to go for my shockwave shocks. So I've got those over here. So I'm gonna take these brackets out of the package, and I'm gonna put them on the brackets on the rear end, and we're gonna figure out where these babies are gonna go, and we'll go from there. So here's my shock, and here's my mount that I mounted on the rear end housing on the brackets that I welded on, and then this up here was my upper cross member for my other shocks. They were like way over here like this. And obviously that's not going to fly. I need to be like around here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut these tabs here off, and I'm going to leave that cross member in there. And the reason I'm going to do that is because it's holding my brake lines, and it's already welded in there. It's not hurting anybody. If anything, it'll just stiffen the frame up, and I'll just get another piece of square tubing to put here, and I'll be able to put my my shocks attached to that. So I think that might be the case. So you just got to think about this a little bit more. So I've got my bracket here, my cross member fabricated. I drilled some holes, and I got this bolted onto the frame over here. I retacked some of these here just to make sure it's right. The same with these brackets. I tacked these wings on the frame there, and the same over here and over there so that they wouldn't move. And right now, I mean, all of my arms are pretty freewheeling. I'm gonna take a socket and ratchet, I'm gonna snug up all my pivot bolts, and then what I think I'm gonna do is I am going to probably take these brackets, cut them off, and we can see how this suspension works. So stay tuned. Okay, so what you're seeing right here is my truck, obviously on the left, but my rear end is sitting on these stands, and this is the actual ride height. And I've got it set on these jack stands, and I measured it all up. So this is what I actually have for travel. So what I'm thinking I'm gonna have to do is obviously a C-notch. It would run like this because it did before, but at the same time, we're gonna have a situation where I think my client's gonna wanna lower this more when he parks it, and that's not really enough movement. So we gotta worry about that, but I mean, you know, it's got a nice look to it. It goes up and down freely. My drive line is really nice. I mean, I checked all my angles. I'm looking great. So at this point, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna work on making my cross member that's gonna go up in this area here for my shocks that are gonna go here like this. So I got some steel over here on the bench, weld some plates on the end of this, and so I can slip this up in there with a couple of holes in it, and that way there, this cross member here will also bolt in just like this other one that I made right here. So I'll be able to take that out and paint that as well. So that's what I'm gonna work on now. Okay, so one of the things that I did was I made these templates here. What these represent is the 3 positions of my shock. So in other words, fully compressed from here to here, ride height from here to here, and then fully extended from here to here on each side. So I can use that, and I could set my my ride height, which I did, and this is going to be my my ride height is going to be right there. Now you can see I got my shock in here, and I got this cross member that I've made that goes across like this, but I just gotta kick it back just a little bit because I don't like the way that my shock is going to be leaning. I got to get it a little bit further this way. So I'm going to notch that. I'm going to cut the bottom of this off, and then I'm going to drill my holes because I made some marks on the other side where my shock actually does go. I'll show you that. So if you look at my cross member here, you can see right there, that's where my shock mount's going to be there. And then I'm going to have another shock mount over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this out, I'm going to drill those holes for my shock mounts, I'm going to cut those other areas, and we should be in pretty good shape for mounting our shocks. I do need another set of these mount bolts, which I ordered. Hopefully they'll be here in a couple of days. Here is my cross member that's going to hold my shocks. I got it all welded up nicely. I've got to get a little bit bigger drill so I can drill this and tap it for my shock mounts. But you can see I got my lower mounts are in here. I'm still just tacked together, but this thing works flawlessly. I've got a good setback out of the transmission for the drive shaft. All my drive line angles are good. I'm bolted in up here. I mean, I think it looks pretty darn snazzy, if I don't say so myself. Okay, so back here on my cross member, what I did was I drilled my holes for my shocks, and then I drilled it with the proper drill. And now what I have is I have this super sexy setup, whereas I can just screw my shock mount right into my cross member. And then the other thing I could do if I wanted to or needed to is I could make several mounts so I could mount my shocks in different locations. But right at this point, I don't think I need that. This is just a mock-up. I got my other holes drilled to mount it to the frame. I'm gonna pop it up there and see how it looks. Okay, so I got my my little plate in here. I got my cross member mounted. This would simulate my shock. I really like it. I think it's perfect. And then I'm looking good over here, and I'll probably transfer my bolts just to double check things over here, but this is looking pretty darn good. Okay folks, so here's my rear end setup. I showed you the cross member here. I'm going to show you the function of this rear end. So basically it's just There's no shocks in it because I'm still working on it, but I got the 4-link all working, and if I come under here, I can move this up like this, and that will be the tucked in position, at least for now. I think I'm going to want to do a C-notch to get it to go a little bit lower. I think my customer's going to want it to be lower than that. And then when you release it, it would go to this ride height. So that's what it looks like when it's functioning. If you needed it to go higher, I could take the stands out and we can extend it higher, but this would be the normal stance. This is the stance the truck had when we started. Now I got some shocks for the front. We're going to get those fitted up. I've made up these plates which simulate my shocks, and in the 3 positions, fully lowered, ride height, and fully extended, so that we'll be able to kind of like play around with that a little bit. Really, the front's going to tell the tale. However low I can get the front, I got to get the back to do the same. So if the front isn't going to go that low, maybe we don't have to do the C-notch, or maybe not much of a C-notch. We'll just have to wait and see. But that's where we're at so far. Okay, so that's going to be, basically, I got it down to what I'm thinking is going to be my ride height. I'm going to be able to drop it another couple inches once I notch the frame. Before I get involved in that, I want to put my bags in the front and see how low that is, so that when I go low evenly. Sounds kind of weird, right? Go low, but go low evenly. That's my new phrase. So anyways, that's what we got going on now. Waiting for some mounts for the back, and then we'll be getting into the front suspension in the next episode. So please like and subscribe, follow me to the next episode, and good luck on your project.